Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your boy Sam G, your lifestyle and personal finance guy. On today's video, I'll be continuing the part 2 of the series that I started the last time with the Excel budget sheet, kind of like helping you build one from scratch so you can kind of be familiar with how they work. I apologize if my audio is a bit fuzzy. I noticed that in the previous video it was a bit like that. It's because it's right next to my mouth, so it moves sometimes. I apologize for that if that's that way. Let's get right to the video. So last time we ended at this sheet here. We started with the income sheet here. We set this up, and we set up an expense sheet, which was just a bunch of tables and categories that we listed over here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use this information here to build something called a pivot table that helps categorize our expenses and helps us see how much we're spending each month and how much we have left over, if any at all. So the easiest way to build a pivot table is to select your data. We've set everything up already, so we'll just highlight column D through J. We select it that way, and then we hit insert, and you hit insert pivot table. So now we have something called a pivot table. So now we're going to be putting specific information up. But before we do that, let me get rid of the grid lines here. Let's see, there we go. Yeah, so we want particular information, so we can uncheck all the boxes they've done by default for us. We're gonna put the expense category on the columns like that, and then we're going to put the months put that on the rows like that. Yeah, so right now we only have January through May listed because it's just what we have here on the expense sheet, which is over here. Let me move that so it's in sequential order. There we go. So now what we're going to start doing is we're going to start putting the amounts that we spent next to them. So we hit amount and we put those in the columns as well. Actually, yeah, we put that in a column. Mistake on my part. Values rather, sorry. So we have those as the values, right? So now what's happening here is that it's categorizing each amount by the date. So we can make this into a table. Let's go back here and let's make this a table really quickly. Yes, making this into a table. So your categories can change from time to time. It doesn't really matter. Based on the categories that you input on your previous sheet, and as you add more different categories, they will show up here. Let me get rid of the blanks. Do tend to show up sometimes, but I will get rid of it in this case since I'll be using it to make a second table. All right, so here we go. So what we're going to do now we have a pivot table that automatically updates when you refresh. When you put something new here, you can once you put in, let's say, let me try something. So I can put in maybe March 2nd. Let's say I went to American Bowling or something like that. Put that under entertainment. And say it cost me maybe $50, right? So once I put in new information, I would go back, I would right click here, and I would hit refresh. And as you see, the number updates here. So it says in March you spent an additional $50, right? So that's what's here under entertainment. It's right here. So you can make these dollar amounts to make things easier, so you can kind of visualize them a bit better. So what I like to do now is I like to copy and paste the information here. Actually, I'll just create a different table. So let's see, make a different table, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to equate the rows next to each other. So like this row will go here, and then I'll kind of run that all the way down. See if I can, yeah, kind of like that. I'll do the same for here. Do the same here, likewise for all of them, and then I'll drag it down to cover all of them. What this does is that means that as you update as the table updates in the future, it's going to automatically update down there as well. I unselected the blank, but it still showed up. Let me see if, yeah, it still showed up. So I'm gonna just, I'm just gonna include a blank just to keep things consistent so it doesn't mess up our table. So equals here, and then what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna drag down each one. Drag down to the bottom right corner, drag it down, and then the numbers will update as you know you update your other expense table. Just to make things consistent here. So now that we're done with that, we can go ahead and use the $sign on all of it just to make things in currency. Cancel mistake. Alright, so make this one bold, and then last but not the least, we'll do the same thing for the months. So we'll do the same thing here. January. Drag all the way down. Grand total. So you just have to be careful when you're putting in new information. You have to make sure that it's consistent with the table so it doesn't mess up, because all the work we're going to be doing, it will be based on this table here with the graphs, which will be happening in the next sheet that we're about to make. So that's just something to be aware of. So we'll go straight to the graphs. I'll create a separate sheet, but before we do that, let's save our work here. And then this sheet I'm going to label as graphs. I'll label this as pivot table. Graphs is just simply what the sheet says, so we're just going to make graphs in the sheet. I like to make pie charts, because it gives me a great visualization of where I am and how much of what is taking a piece of the pie, so to speak. So here I'll insert a graph. Let's find a graph. Nice graph. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, there it is. You can get a 2D pie chart, a 3D pie chart. Let's go with something simple for now. I'll get maybe a 2D pie chart, right? Simple. We'll start with the one for January. So you right click on it, hit select data. It might be different if you're using a Windows, but the principle is pretty much still the same, right? So right click, hit that, then you go to the pivot table. Then for the month section, you're going to highlight the months, right? The months for the y-axis. Sorry, the months for the x-axis, and then for the y-axis, you're going to have the respective data. I think what's probably best to do is to start all over again here. Let's do a month by month. What we're gonna do, we're gonna select the month. We're doing a month by month, so I think we're gonna just select month and just drag all the way down. See if that works. Okay, there we go. So that did work, but we do need the let's undo this. We do need the categories to actually show up, not just the numbers. So let's try that slightly differently, see if we can come up with something else. So we do that up to this part, and then do that up to this part. Oh, let me do that again. Chart data, B14 and G14. Control. Yeah, so now let's try again. Okay, now it's working how we want it to work. gonna change things a little bit here, clean up the chart a little bit. So we'll insert title and put some stuff on it here. Alright guys, so just to keep everything simple, this is essentially what the graph will look like, right? And it will tell you how much of the pie that each category is taking. The color codes are down here. You can clean it up, make it a bit more as fancy as you want to make it, however best will work for you. And then the next thing that we're gonna do, which is the last thing, we're gonna do the cash flow, right? So we're gonna do the net cash flow. That's just simply you looking at how much you have coming in total versus how much that you have in terms of your expense. Let's see. So net cash flow, it's just essentially what that just is just a table. So let's set up a quick table with let me actually set it up without so January. So income, expense, right? So your income would be, oops, cut this out. This here. Then your income would make sure all of this is dollars. Okay. Income is what we have here. So we have our income for January. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the total here. Total that's under here. Right. So whenever you have the same for February, March, April, May, June, you do the same. So just to make things simple, I'm just going to copy and paste this and put it in every column until about maybe May or June. That way our data set is populated. Yep. Always make sure to save your sheet so you don't lose your work. So we do the same for the other columns here. And make sure when you're matching them, you match them the right way. So C6, what we could do actually is just change the cell numbers without having to go back and forth. So D6, E6, F6, and then G6. And now that we have most of the data populated, we'll make it a table now. Top. Now let's look at our expenses. So our expenses, this is where the grand total for expenses is going to come in under the pivot table, right? So you see these grand totals that we have here. You can either pick from this or you can either pick from that, whichever one works for you. This seems to be more consistent, so I will pick from here. I will go back to the net cash flow, hit equal, go to pivot table, start with January. And then because it's in a column, you can drag it all the way down. It'll be consistent down. We do not yet have any expense for June, so you got to be careful about that. Otherwise, what you're going to actually end up doing is dragging it down for the grand total instead of the expense. Yeah. So based on this information, we can actually set up a bar graph to note your information to see what you're looking at here. So recommended graphs, set this up this way. Right. Annual income versus annual expenses, right? And what this does here is it gives you a visual representation of every month, how much you're spending in and out. As you populate your graph, it's going to actually be more and more accurate. So you would just work with that as best as you can. So this is pretty much it. I do have a sheet that I specifically made, which is the exact same thing I just taught you here. Although I have simplified this a lot. If you do want that sheet, please contact me. You can just comment in the description, the comment section. And I will send you that sheet. All I need is your email, and I'll just email that to you. Feel free to reach out anytime about anything, any questions that you may have, any feedback. I would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, so this is the video for this. Starting next video, I'll start giving more stocks on more stock tips on for the upcoming like couple of weeks. So please stay tuned, and thank you so much for jumping in on this video, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll catch you guys next time.